All right, let's take a look at how to create that background sky or space nebula. First of all, I'm going to go to a bigger size of the image, but actually I'm lazy, so I'm going to take a shortcut. You know, when you have those stored copies here, you can just click those, but if they're bigger, it's not going to automatically adjust the size. But you can simply pull down here and then go to create new document. So that will actually create a new document of the same size. Right? So if this one is even bigger, you can see part of it is visible in the preview, but only here, only part of it. So what you can do is you can create a new document with that same image. And so if you have one that's a little bit smaller, it's there, but ideally you just rescale. And so that's a quick shortcut to sort of being lazy, right? If you want to have an image ready, to just switch back to that. You could even put some text in it saying what the dimensions are. Like what's that, 1900 by let's see, image. Well, let's go here. Let's go replace the image. There you go. So we have it like that. Then we go put some text in there. Where's my text tool? Right there. Maybe a little bit bigger. And I think the dimensions of this is info 1900, 1600 by 900. So I'm going to just put that right in there. I'm going to say 1600 by 900 as a reminder. Oh, and I cannot type. I haven't finished my cup of coffee yet today. 1600 by, okay, we need to make it a little bit bigger or a lot bigger. Let's click the font settings here, make it big like this, and then grab the corner to make it fully visible and place it nicely centered in here. And then just drop it, apply text. It's now black and white, and then store it. So you now have a copy here, right? So this one we can dismiss, and whenever you need a copy of this image as a starting point, you click this, right? You have here, you could done some work, and I just click here, it loads that. And if it's actually a different dimension, you can say, let's force it to that new document dimension. So with that, you then simply erase to whatever your current color is, and you know you have your 1600 by 900 or whatever dimensions you wanted. And let's get going. So we have this filter under the filter menu for rendering plasma noise, and that one lends itself nicely to create a variety of interesting cloud patterns, but also nebula for space scenes. You can start with perhaps the difference mode. Not really much different here because we started with nothing to begin with. Okay that, and then go back to the same filter, render plasma noise again, but this time because it's not in opaque mode, replacing the existing image. You can use difference mode. You can use complement mode. Not bad. That one could be interesting if you apply a gradient to it as well. But one I'm going to use here is the less than mode. And we're starting to see some filaments, very fine details in filaments, and almost like lightning strikes and all sorts of fancy stuff. Then we just need to have it redone, like click the scale button once and you see some of these globules and dark matter versus bright background. Maybe make it seamless. Each of these will look a little bit different. And at some point, if you fall in love with it, like this one here, looks like there's a big explosion perhaps happening, or a supernova just about to smash this dark matter. So let's go and okay that and store that. And let's say we want another one. So let's go undo this back to that prior version and enter the plasma noise again. And it's still in that same mode. So it produces yet another interesting looking. Let's keep that one and store that one. So you can easily create several of these. Right, let's undo that, or even do one and iteratively keep going. So you don't have to undo and redo. You can just keep going. Let's do that one more time. This time even bigger, and it's a little bit more sparse and some free-floating dark matter. This is maybe 1 billion years after the planets have formed, and there's still some dark matter, but not a whole lot. The rest have turned into planets. If you go smaller, you can see here there's a little bit more chaos. And by all means, try also some of the color modes, RGB. Even if later you decide, okay, I like the blue and the red, but I don't want the green or something like that. And you can also change the colors here. See what that does. Hue saturation value. Some of these will combine to really interesting effects, especially if then you also create some other color changes to that. I'm going to keep it two color here, maybe a reddish and a bluish, and see if I can get one more a little bit bigger here. There. So that's an interesting one too, and I'm going to add a little bit of color changes. Let's do adjust color, and with that you could reduce the red if you want to have it more like cold appearing, a little bit less on the green as well, and just darker altogether. Right, so you can adjust these quite nicely here. Perhaps a little bit more contrast, a little bit more brightness. Let's go back to the value filter, and you could go and maybe reduce this a little bit and increase the value. The gamma will also look interesting if you want to make it like dark, mysterious, a little bit more contrast. Look at that. Remember, many of these filters also have a side-by-side look, so you can see on one side before you make the change and the other one with the change in place. That's an interesting one too. And so let's keep that. Now, one thing that we also want to do sometimes is to combine some of these, right? So let's say we have this one here that looks a little bit like we have perhaps a supernova going kaboom in the background there. So first I'm going to adjust a little bit for the contrast. This time I'm going to use the curves. Curves tool is really interesting too for very quickly change the RGB or just the value. And this one is already grayscale, so it doesn't really make much of a difference there. But you can saturate it, you can keep it low, and so you can get a sense for that glow that's happening here. Now, let's say we want to also modify one. Let's store this one, and so we have a snapshot. We still have this original and this one and this one. And let's say we want to combine them. So one thing you can do is you can load one in this image and then switch with the switch or swap to the back image, just like the back of your canvas, and load this one in here, and you can switch back and forth. So you can combine one with the other. And I don't care what's in here or what's in there. Let's say this one here will replace with a dot like this one. And so we have these two images. And we can say, let's keep this one, but have this guy kind of displace it, do a little bit of a turbulent matter on it. So we use the filter displace by swap. And there's a couple of displacement algorithms. Some of them give you a little bit more of what you're looking for. A little bit of tearing is great for marble textures and lots of other effects. But you know, if you want to look like you're doing some sort of a space shift travel or something like that, this might be an interesting one too. Let's take a look at the jitter or the pool displace. Pool displace is, yeah, that one will easily be useful for marble textures and similar stuff too. So, but sometimes you'll find that really useful to create a little bit of extra added turbulence. Right, like you see here how it's like fluid in appearance in its flow there, and you could do an animation with that. So you could perhaps keep it like this, just around like that, and then perhaps, you know, if there is indeed some sort of either a black hole, a strong gravity field, or an explosive blast, maybe you need to have a little bit of a light diffusion. The blur with the mystic vision comes to mind. That one will have either the dark or the bright parts. Minimum parts, you have the dark part cast shadows. Maximum, you have the bright parts explode. Right, so here you have really kind of light rays starting to break through the gaps and the openings. And of course you might say, well, that's nice, but it's too intense. So you can fade it with the fade last action. You can say a little bit more, a little bit less, and just adjust it to be perfect. Another way you could do this, of course, is put it in a layer and in additive mode, adjust the transparency level of that layer. A bit more of a traditional approach. This is just a little shortcut to get there faster. One thing I would also do is store that and then perhaps undo to go back to the prior, do a little bit more crisp here, a little bit more sharpening. Let's see, sharpen, digital photo enhance, one of my favorite. HSV, hue saturation value mode, will get you some nice sharpening. And then you can go and combine with the other one. So the other one was here, and this one is the one we currently have. So how do we combine them? We have, I'm going to store that to make sure I have it in case I forgot. Oh no, these are the same, so I can drop one. This one here has the glow, this one doesn't. So these two, I want to kind of fade between the two, or see if I can do other combinations. One is I'm going to put this one here as the main image, and I'm going to open a layer. And in fact, there's this new feature here where you can say in what mode you want that, like in additive mode. And of course, if you have a layer added that way and it's white, it's going to be, wait, no, this one is not additive mode. I had it in default, sorry. So here, if you had it in additive mode, and it would be completely white, right? Because there's nothing that could be brighter. But what you could do now is load this image into it. So it is brighter, but it is controllable to some extent. It's saturated in some areas, way too bright. But you have this value here for the layer opacity or transparency, so you can adjust a little bit how much that's coming through. Plus, instead of the additive mode, you could say, let's try subtractive. Let's try see, for instance, these bright streaks from the glow could now turn into dark streaks like shadows, right? And so you could use that, and then use the transparency value on that. And when you're happy with that, you simply flatten it, and you perhaps adjust the dynamic range so it does go back to brightest but also darkest. And you have a whole glow information here. We can go perhaps photographic contrast improvement in the photographic filters. Again, maybe adjust the contrast. I like that Mystic Vision. That's just one that I keep going back to also, to indicate where is that glow. Maybe there's two. Maybe there's a supernova here, and there's a binary star behind this dark area here. And so that one also is expanding some glows, and you can adjust the quality of that. And then also, if you want it somewhat different in the mathematical operation there, so you can adjust it like this. And let's say that's what we wanted, although I'm not really sure. But that's the thing, is that we keep exploring, and it's time to call it a day and ask for payment for this gig, right? So let's see. So that's the background. Let's say we wanted it a little bit more colorful. So I'm going to go to the gradients now. Here, this tool has a bunch of gradients. You can right-click to see some of the gradient tools. But when you select that tool, you also have a preview of existing gradients. So all we got to do is find one that's red, blue, reddish, or something like that, or we create one. Like this one here isn't quite perfect, but we can use that to map a gradient on it. It could be with the linear gradient in multiply mode, right? When you do that in multiply mode, it changes the color, and you can easily make it so that it's not the same color in all the different parts of the picture. A cool one too is the circular gradient. Then that way you have a bit of a whitish look on the outside and a little bit of a bluish look on the inside. And of course you can reverse that. If you click at the gradients here, the previews, and go to the sweep editor, there is a better control of the sweeps in these colors. You can say the red should actually be present dominant here, so we have a lot of red, but then reduce the green and the blue. So here, go like this. The blue should be dominant here, the green should not be dominant at all, and the blue is here, the red is over here maximized, and then we can also set the brightness of that a little bit, the value, and perhaps go like this, or perhaps like this, so it's dark in between. Again, I want to get more red, so let's give it something like this. And then the opacity, well, the gradient is not going to be, that will just keep as is, but you can also smooth it here. There's a switch back and forth, and there's a smooth. So if you click, it's a one time, but if you click and hold, it keeps going and smoothing that gradient. And so now with the circular gradient, you multiply like this, and you have some weird changes in that color. Maybe we'll go switch it and go this way. Now we have some dark blue on the outside and a mysterious reddish on the inside. So that's good. That's mission accomplished. Let's make it a little bit brighter though. Let's go dynamic range. Let's make it even more brighter. Let's go to adjust, this time again with the level, or with the curves. I like the curves tool for that. Let's go reset and see what we can do here to make it a little bit more intense. I want to get a few breakouts there. There you go. Something like this. And then of course it's time to get some more lens flares here, or Nova. I like the lens flares. Let's do that. Let's put one big one here, and I don't know, there's a couple of others here, different colored. Maybe there's a reddish, and of course you have a whole bunch that don't show too many of these internal reflections. So you can take this blue one and say, well, there's a little star here and a few more, couple of stars in different areas, some red ones, some red giants, and maybe one that's like the sun. This one in the lower right corner, that comes pretty close to a similar appearance as the sun, by the way. So take this a little bit here, and nothing wrong with doing another level of glow, but let's call this, let's say this is the one I wanted. And so now we have a nice background that we can use to then composite some spaceship or something, some debris, some a moon or some other stuff in front of it, like an asteroid. So I hope this helped and entertained, and we'll see you next time.